Okay, well, I'll read a little bit from The Enchanted Hour by Megan Cox Gordon. I put the link in the one of the other videos I did on this book already. I've read it from like 3 or 4 times now. I'll try to dig them all up and put them in a playlist for The Enchanted Hour. My voice is just not good for reading, is it? I don't know what's going on. It's kind of a froggy thing to it. I said I was going to go in about 8, so it's about 8. I got to get me a Carhartt hat because this thing looks retarded. I don't like it. It'll be done anyway, so I'm going to wait a while. Bone broth with curry and cayenne. And sea salt. Warm my throat up a little bit. Okay. Nobody on? Okay, fine. What are you up to? Hey, Jack. How you doing? Well, I was going to read a little bit from a book or two. I've been reading a little bit from The Enchanted Hour by Megan Cox Gordon. And then I've been planning to read from The Silver Chair, one of the Chronicles of Narnia, and talk about allegory and stories in general, fictional stories in general. So, speaking of that, maybe I'll do a little bit of this book. This is from chapter 6 of The Enchanted Hour by Megan Cox Gordon. My purpose in starting out to do this is that I read some of this book and I was very impressed by the idea that the fact that if you read to children when they're young, it vastly increases their communication capability and their intelligence quotient, their IQ. It'll make them much more successful in life, much more able to communicate. So I want to do that, and I'm hoping that my children will have my grandchildren watch these someday. So I'm going to read a little bit about fiction. The Power of Paying Attention and Flying Free, Chapter 6. Megan Cox Gordon. I don't know if you can, might be backwards in there, but The Enchanted Hour. Okay, you can get it on Amazon. Links in the description and the comments of the last 2 videos I did. You can go to my channel and find the other ones. Fairly recent. Okay, The Power of Paying Attention and Flying Free. Alice started to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it. And burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. From Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland. Okay. Time to tear up on my throat. Oh man, I don't know. It's just crazy. What's with my throat? It's very cold and very dry. With Alice's dash down the hole under the hedge, Lewis Carroll captures what happens when a listener disappears into a story that someone is reading out loud. He doesn't know where he's going or what he'll find. His adventure may begin like Alice's with a momentary scramble. There's a book to be chosen, a seat to be claimed. As he settles in to listen, his surroundings are still ordinary, just as Alice, pursuing the white rabbit, travels along what at first appears to be a normal burrow that runs straight on, like a tunnel, quote unquote. Then, without warning, the rabbit hole dips down, and Alice finds herself falling into what seems to be a very deep well. Quote, either the well was very deep or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her and to wonder what was going to happen next, Carroll writes. As if here deliberately trying to reproduce the experience of a reader dropping into a fictional world, entering what novelist John Gardner calls a vivid and continuous dream. Everyone loves a good story, as the folklorist Sybil Marshall observed. It seems that mankind is born with an avid appetite for details of other lives besides the one his own small span of corporeal existence grants to him. It is as though he seizes from his earliest years upon this way of enlarging the bounds of his own life. Something special happens when this fictional transport takes place in the intimate setting of a read aloud. The listener enters a cycle of thought, imagination, and practical behavior that can have surprising and even profound ramifications. Rather than taking prefabricated entertainment off a screen, he brings the smells, sounds, and sights of a story to life in his own mind. In the view of the psychologist James Hillman, oral storytelling is not only good for the soul, but also prepares children for life. Those who experience it in childhood, he argued, are in better shape and have a better prognosis than those to whom story must be introduced. Coming early with life, it's already a perspective to life. In literature, we are freed from physical constraints and from the orthodoxies of our time and place. We meet characters we would never encounter in the real world. In a vicarious way, we experience life through them, and one result is an expansion of our emotional understanding. As Britain's former children's laureate Chris Riddell said, a good book is an empathy machine. A good book is an empathy machine. It allows you to feel. Complicated and mysterious things happen inside people when we give them time to listen. The trick is to make it happen. Okay. So she tells a story now. On a recent winter day, I'm going to start over. On a recent winter day, I got to watch a room full of fourth graders teleport to medieval Persia. The mechanism was a picture book by Diane Stanley. The medium was the voice of a school librarian, the celebrated writer Laura Amy Schlitz. The launch site, so to speak, was a Baltimore school library, a mid-century modern place of exposed brick and blonde wood with large window at one end that showed a bleak and overcast sky. I had only just arrived and shaken hands with Schlitz when there was a sudden rush and bubble of voices from the hallway, and there came a horde of 9 and 10-year-olds. Pouring past us, the children threw themselves on a terrace of upholstered benches, chattering and jostling. After a moment, without saying a word, Schlitz planted a yardstick on the floor with one hand and raised the other, rhapsode style. The talk died away. These children were evidently in the habit of being interested in what their librarian had to say. Schlitz pulled up a chair to face the class, made a few preliminary remarks, and held up a copy of Fortune. The front cover shows a man in a turban and robe gesturing toward an elegant woman who is knelt to embrace a tiger. Flowers and curlicues decorate the margins in the style of an illuminated manuscript. Long ago, in the poorest corner of Persia, there lived a farmer and his son whose name was Omar. Schlitz began. When Omar came of age, all his father could give him were his blessing and a small purse full of money. With that, he would have to make his way in the world. But poor Omar had no idea what to do or where to go. Apart from the single voice, the room was silent. The children's faces had slackened. One boy had pulled his knees up under his shirt so that only his feet peeked out. A girl sat cross-legged, leaning forward on her elbows. Another boy lay on his back, gazing at the ceiling. Everyone was listening. "You there, young man," Slits said, giving an imperious edge to the voice of a veiled stranger. The woman proposes to sell Omar a tiger on a leash. He can make the animal dance on its hind legs for money and secure his fortune. Omar agrees. Sure enough, everywhere he went with his tiger, he was showered with money, and with the beast curled up beside him at night, he never feared robbers. A teacher's aide reached across and raised a boy who had folded over. Otherwise, the listeners sat still. Their faces were blank. They had gone to Persia. In the story, Omar gets very rich thanks to the tiger, and he decides that it's time for him to marry. Wealth has made him conceited, though, so Omar resolves to find a fancier bride than his childhood sweetheart, whose name is Sunny. "You are a fine friend," he said, meaning to be kind. "You're not ugly, but you're not pretty either. You are a farmer's daughter. You see, I am now a great man. I should probably marry a princess." With that, he left his village and his little friend Sunny, whose sad, dark eyes reminded him strangely of the tiger's. Soon Omar enters a magnificent city known for the sorrow of its princess. No one has been able to console Princess Shirin since her fiancé disappeared on the eve of their wedding. Most people say he had drowned, Slits read in the voice of a gossipy serving woman who's explaining the situation to Omar, but some believe he's been enchanted by a witch. I was impressed that Slits wasn't turning the story into a pedagogical exercise. She did not stop to ask the children to predict plot turns or to analyze the characters. She didn't even turn the book around every few minutes with that well-meaning but cumbersome way to ensure that everyone got to see the pictures. She just let the words float out, one after another, trusting the language to work its own magic. "Oh," gasped a curly-haired boy, his face brimmed with glee, as he looked around to see if anyone else had realized something important about the tiger. No one had. He was the first to see that the animal is really the princess's true love, under a spell. Silly Omar, thinking he could woo the young woman, but instead had brought her fiancé back to her. Soon, Shazam, the tiger disappears, and in his place stands a handsome young man. Everyone thinks Omar has brought about the reunion on purpose. The grateful Sultan heaps him with treasure. Only Omar knows the depths of his own foolishness. Shamefaced, he slinks back to his village to apologize to Sunny and to ask her to marry him. "Well," says Sunny, "I don't know. You're not ugly, but you're not handsome either, and you're certainly not a prince." A ripple of laughter ran through the children. A moment later, Sunny relents, and the couple weds. The class applauded. They were back in Baltimore. It had been a good trip. So, the episode was an object lesson in the power of a good story to hold people fast. While Slits was reading, the boys and girls appeared to be in a state of suspended animation. They would not have realized it, but the enjoyment they got from listening was feeding a virtuous behavioral circle. If they sat still, kept quiet, and paid attention, they could enjoy the story, even as their enjoyment of the story got them used to sitting still, keeping quiet, and paying attention. An illustrated tale of a tiger, a foolish fellow, and a sorrowful princess had the meta effect of encouraging these fourth graders to extend the span of their attention. That is no small achievement. In our distracted age, it's a challenge to keep anyone's focus. Technology is training us to dart and react like hummingbirds, scrolling, clicking, tweeting, liking, for people in the sustained attention business that not least book publishers, those developments are unsettling. As Carolyn Reedy, the president of Simon & Schuster, worried aloud to an audience of booksellers not long ago, "You have whole generations being trained in for far shorter attention spans than books require." Well, that's the truth. I admit that. The pleasures of technology produce a faster and more frenetic behavioral circle. Scrolling, clicking, liking, tweeting deliver tiny doses of pleasing chemicals which fuel our urge to scroll, click, like, and tweet again. A cycle that Adam Alter points out makes our devices almost irresistible. It's a drug. They're drugs. One of the effects is who's on? Jack, Gideon, Sarge. Hey, Sarge, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Gad, how you doing? So, One of the effects is a decreasing ability to stay on task. It is said that since the turn of the millennium, the attention span of the average adult has dropped from 12 seconds to 8. If that's true, then Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella is right in saying that human attention is becoming the true scarce commodity. True story. If you can't read a 400-page book, 300, 200-page, 100-page book, where's your attention span? And this book is 250, 300 pages. The index and whatever is about 50 pages worth of pages, but it's 250. That's footnotes. The footnotes start at, my gosh, this thing is really well done. This is a scholarly work. Acknowledge start at page 249, 219. The text of the book ends at 222, and the next 40 pages are notes, footnotes, index, etc. 278 pages. Yep, 278 pages. 222 to 278, 56 pages of notes and stuff. Okay, so it's a fairly large book, and even at that, I realized I could not read this out loud to my audience because it's not over my head, but it's just I was not be able to follow what I was reading, and read it in such a way that you would understand it. That's what I felt like anyway. Maybe I could, I don't know. Depends. I read the entire book, Lights Out, and that was close to 450, 600 pages, something like that. It was a big book, good sized book. But it was all just story. It was a novel. It was easy to read. It wasn't a scholarly book. This is somewhat a scholarly book in the sense that she goes to places like brain study centers, where they have EEGs hooked up, reading kids' minds, not reading their minds, but reading their brain waves and saying how active their brain is and stuff like that. So reading the good description of those machines is not easy to comprehend, let alone convey. So I'm probably not going to do it. Anyway, I'll continue reading here. After Laura Amy Schlitz had finished reading to the 4th grade class, I had a chance to sit down with the children. I wanted to know what they made of the experience. How did it feel? What did they think? How did it feel? Tell me, how did it make you feel? Their answers gave a wonderful glimpse into the secret work of the imagination and the gratification of engaging one's capacities. When Laura reads out loud to me, my brain shuts everything else out. I feel excited and interested. I feel like I'm the main character when someone reads aloud to me. When someone's reading to me, I can do deeper thinking about things like wondering if the tiger was the prince. I can be absorbed if I'm reading it by myself, but I notice that it's easier when someone else reads, so my brain doesn't have to split its attention to the words and what they mean. I feel like I'm solving a mystery in the pauses. I forget that I'm right here. It feels like I'm in the sky looking down from above, but we can see the whole story. This last feeling, the out-of-body sensation of drifting above events or within them or being swept away by them, is both common and extraordinary. The annals of personal remembrance and literary memoir are full of these transporting moments. Walter Olson, father of Tim, the toddler adopted from Russia, was a little older than the children in Laura Amy Schlitz's library when he first had the experience, and it never left him. In 5th grade, his teacher took out a full-length biography of the Indian warrior Crazy Horse and began reading aloud to her class. This went on for weeks, Olson remembered, and I was mesmerized. Oh my goodness, she's actually going to read us this entire book. It's a luxury like I'd never known before, to absorb an entire book by having someone clearly and expressively read the whole thing to me. Wow. Bouts of asthma kept the writer Alberto Manguel confined to his bed when he was a child. Propped up on pillows, he listened to his nurse read the terrifying tales of the Brothers Grimm. Sometimes her voice put me to sleep, he remembered. Sometimes, on the contrary, it made me feverish with excitement. Sometimes, on the contrary, made me feverish with excitement, and I urged her on in order to find out more quickly than the author had intended what happened in the story. Most of the time, I simply enjoyed the luxurious sensation of being carried away by the words and felt in a very physical sense that I was actually traveling somewhere wonderfully remote to a place that I hardly dared glimpse on the secret last page of the book. My throat's going. As a second grader, the novelist Kate DiCamillo lived, she said, for the times when her teacher read the Island of the Blue Dolphins to the class. Reading aloud can change a child's life, DiCamillo said. It can turn a child into a writer. It can certainly turn a child into a reader. For the French author Daniel Pennac, the experience looks like liberation. In his book, The Rights of the Reader, he writes, free. That was how our children experienced it, a gift, time out. In spite of everything, the bedtime story relieved them of their daytime burdens. Freed from their moorings, they traveled with the wind, infinitely lighter, and the wind was our voice. A gift, a luxury, life-changing freedom. Why would we trade it for anything? Why would we stop? I'm going to stop right there. That's where I'm going to stop right there. So, the thing about books is, some people like novels, some people hate novels, never read a novel in their life type of thing, and that's fine. Some people have the ability to live life for real, do things, go places, travel the world. Other people don't get to go anywhere. I've never been anywhere. In 2015, I realized I was nobody who'd been nowhere and done nothing. And when I said that to this person, he said, "That's not true. You're not a nobody." Well, I am. I haven't done anything. I haven't been anywhere. I haven't done anything. I don't have anything. I haven't been anywhere. I haven't done anything. So, but so one way to experience life is either for real or vicariously, and vicariously. So I've been 1,000 places most people have never been. I've been a million. I've lived a million lives that nobody's ever lived. So, on the subject of allegory and novels, fiction. How did Jesus teach in the New Testament? What does it say Jesus taught? He never taught without a parable. He always taught in stories. He taught in fictional stories. So what's wrong with fictional stories? And in the Old Testament, it says that in Ezekiel 17, it says that this is a riddle. Son of man, I propound a riddle, allegory, a story, So God uses allegory and stories all the time. How did Nathan confront David about his sin with Bathsheba? There's a guy that had a sheep, and this guy wanted to buy the sheep, and the guy said, no, the lamb. So the guy, stole the lamb, took the lamb. And David said, oh, kill him. He said, thou art the man, It was a story he told the king to get his attention and to get him to pass judgment on himself. And David passed judgment on himself, Hey, what he did was wrong. He needs to, make it right. He needs to be punished for his sin. Okay, well, you're the man, and you're going to be punished. So your son's going to die. So, so there's nothing wrong with allegory and stories and telling parables, because the Bible uses it consistently, and it's a very effective way of getting a truth across, whether it be, a law or a principle of life or something. But it's a good way to get it across. So, and then on the thing of Chronicles of Narnia, that's a very allegorical series of books, set of books. This is the Silver Chair. Now, if you haven't followed me on that, the reason I'm reading this one is because it's like it's kind of a standalone, pretty much a standalone story. All the other stories are cumulative. They interplay a massive degree with other stories in the series of books. There's 7 books total, and the and they interact so much that there's characters that run throughout the whole series. In some cases, it was Talking Mouse, Reapy Cheap, very famous character. Mr. Tumnus, a fawn. The first character that Lucy meets when she gets in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe into Narnia through the wardrobe, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The witches, the Queen Jadis, and there are a couple of witches that play in and out of the stories lines from the first one to the last one. Anyway, my voice is going. I'm not going to really talk much longer. So I'm just saying, this is a standalone book, but there's a lot of principles and truths and biblical teachings that are come into play through these books. And there was a group of men called the Inklings. They were a group of writers that met constantly in Oxford and Oxford. I think it was C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, John Rundle Rule Tolkien. The priest, can't quite remember his name, Williams, the guy that wrote another fictional writer, and they talked and they discussed each other's writings, and Tolkien despised allegory. He didn't like allegory. And yet, I have to say that the whole Lord of the Rings scenario is very much allegorical. In a sense, if you have the good guys and bad guys, the good forces of good and the forces of evil. And almost all of the forces of evil begins with B's and S's. Sauron, like Satan, Sauron. Baal, you got a Boromir's bad guy. The Balrog is a bad guy. Actually, Baal, Balrog, Balrog. So you have a lot of bad guys with B's and S's in their names, starting with their names, and then the good people have G's: Gandalf, Galadriel, Glorfindel, G's and E's, Elrohir, and I don't know all the other ones, but they're very, to some degree allegorical. And Gandalf fights with the Balrog for 3 days, falling into the depths of the earth for 3 days. So, and then he's resurrected into a white. He's no longer Gandalf the Great, no longer Gandalf the Wanderer. He's Gandalf the White. He's more powerful. He fell for 3 days in the depths of the earth, into hell, and then he was resurrected into a new body and a new power, a new level of, capabilities. So tell me that Tolkien did not have the idea of, good and evil in his mind. Yeah, he did. The whole series is about good and evil. So Gollum, he's a G guy. Anyway, my voice is about going, so I'm going to quit. And it is. I'm going to say good night, everybody. I can't talk much longer. I gotta get me a Carhartt hat. This one looks kind of dopey. Sarite says, "What are we reading?" Me either. Yeah, good summary there. It appears to be a discussion of the intellectual gains for a child who is read to. Exactly, yeah. The book is The Enchanted Hour by Megan Cox Gurdon. The links are in the drop down description and in the comment section, so they'll be in there. This is a live, so it'll go up tonight sometime. But I did it recently. I did 2 readings from it earlier, last night and the night before. So if you go to those, you can find the link for the book on Amazon or whatever. You can download it and find it somewhere. All right, Jack. Good night. Good night, Gad. Good night, Sarge. Good night, ESP. All right, well, God bless everybody. I'm hoping this coming Saturday to get my pick up my stovepipe for my underground stove system. So that's something that's got to happen. All right, good night, people.